Hi, everyone, and welcome inside Mountain America Stadium for the Devil Source Postgame Show presented by Jones Auto Centers. Gabby Chernoff and Chris Cartman here following ASU's 25-23 win over West Virginia. They moved to 7-3 on the season, 5-2 in a Big 12 play. Still very much in the hunt for that Big 12 title game. We'll get into some of those scenarios a little bit later on, but we've been calling Kenny Dillingham Cardiac Kenny. His dad at one point called him the Cardiac Kid as well while he was walking off the field, and now we have a whole new metaphor as he puts everybody into the stadium, all the Sun Devil fans at least, into cardiac arrest at the end of the game. He said, "Nobody asked about the pain, they just asked to see the baby. Unless it's my wife, then I'm concerned with the pain, but I'll also ask to see the baby."
Yeah.
A pretty good analogy, actually. I've never heard something like that. You know, he says he's not a vocabulist, but, you know, maybe he has some sort of writing skills with those literary devices.
I've heard of that one, but not often. And his wife is due in a couple of months. So he better be very careful about how he's handling that.
He was very quick to preface it as unless it's my wife, because she, like you said.
But there was a lot of angst in the stadium. ASU looked like the far superior team in the first half, even into the second half, despite some offensive struggles, and then gave up the insane 3rd and 27 and somehow found itself trailing and then came back to win, delivered the baby. Another win.
And the baby was cute to all the Sun Devil fans. They just love it so much.
Yeah, and he was like kind of giddy like in the post-game press conference, and it had a lot of jokes and good energy. And I'm sure that's because ASU is still very much alive in the Big 12 picture, as we're going to get into. And they're winning with backups and key roles and not having star players out there. And doesn't mean that they played well enough relative to what was possible, but we continue to move forward, and a lot of pain and a baby.
Very injury riddled. That's the pain part. But like you said, the past two games
and the fans, like people, like not just like they're giving the fans like anxiety through the roof.
Well, the pain part is all the injuries that have come this season, but Jeff Sims is really delivering that baby. And the past two games under Jeff Sims, this is his first start in front of Sun Devil fans here in Tempe. But just, Chris, what can you say about his performance today? He didn't turn the ball over like he did last time he played at Iowa State. So what can you just say about his performance as a whole and how Sun Devil fans have really embraced him?
First half, excellent. Second half, so-so. We're seeing a lot of zone coverage in the first half and zone pressures, and then in the second half there was a defensive adjustment that was made to play more man coverage by West Virginia, and ASU didn't handle that as well. And that was a good adjustment, I think, that the Mountaineers made. The Sun Devils did a poor job, and they were not able to get any sort of attraction going in that half. Sims was outstanding in the first half. He had 3 touchdown passes to different receivers. You had Derek Eusebio more involved than any time in his career. Shema Mateer continued to have an impact. Malik McClain was out there. Even had the 2-point conversion to Cameron Harpole that was made on a very important play after one of the touchdowns. So the ball was getting spread around. And then the second half, it all kind of ground to a halt, and they weren't able to do almost anything that looked good offensively. That was pain-inducing. I still thought ASU.
Those are the contractions.
Yeah, that's what it was. And I still thought ASU was in really strong shape until that disastrous "what the heck happened" thing. But Jeff Sims, I guess what I would say, Gabby, is a lot of ASU fans and a lot of just people in general, when Sam Leavitt was lost for the season, they basically wrote off ASU. Season's over. Let's think about next year. What's going to happen in the transfer portal? Are they going to be able to keep Sam Leavitt? Are they going to surround him with all these players? Well, guess what? The season's still going on. Jeff Sims won the last 2 games as a starter, first one at home. Good point. He had only started on the road, Cincinnati, Utah, Iowa State. Now he comes back. First half was outstanding. I'm starting to wonder, is this guy going to do the AP National Player of the Week thing, like in consecutive games? Not in the second half, although they had a good drive to go down and allow Jesus Gomez to kick the game-winning field goal after an earlier field goal had been blocked. More contractions and labor pains or whatever.
How far apart are the contractions? We gotta see before we go into labor.
Doug Tamaro, ASU's SID, who does a phenomenal job, been here since '93, I think. As before we were recording this, he's like, I feel like the fourth quarter is like a whole game in itself, and the way ASU's played some of these, and I really couldn't disagree.
I feel the same way. We can attest, like sitting on the end of the end zone there. Every time something happens, we all kind of put down our cameras and just kind of collectively look at each other like, what is going on?
And then it started to rain, like right there, the last crucial stretch of the fourth quarter. Sprinklers are coming down. ASU played
the water
in the rain.
broke.
Yeah, the water broke. There you go. Iowa State, right? It was like all kind of terrible conditions. Utah were terrible.
I remember.
Yeah, you do. Better than me. Utah, terrible conditions. And I was like, is this going to become like a deluge, or are the dark clouds following ASU with all the injuries? You could use that in any way you want to, but yeah. I don't know.
Well, on the defensive side, at least 2 crucial red zone stops right behind us, and then
for these 4th and shorts. Remember, earlier in the game, West Virginia had been going into a lot of heavy personnel groupings and really just running the ball straight ahead with a lot of success. And it took a while for ASU to adjust to that style. And then rather than kick some field goals and be more conservative, West Virginia got pretty aggressive, and some defensive plays were made. Miles Rouser and CJ Fight and other guys through the middle did a really good job. West Virginia had been excellent in red zone offense coming into this game, and turning those types of opportunities into touchdowns. Wasn't able to do that in this game. Anticipate and go pick one off. And they had targeted him in the game in some crucial situations where he had some passes defended that really worked out well for ASU. And he's been as good as any ASU player on the team this year, rated by PFF as I think the top cornerback grade in the Big 12 and on ASU's team. And in that crucial moment, the pass was a little bit awry. He said that he had locked onto eyes with the quarterback in a way that allowed him to know that was coming his way. He had that sixth sense that was going to happen, and then there's the ball, interception, and here's the baby.
Well, he saves the game on the field, maybe a little bit of a telepathic connection of some sorts as well. He played hero, though. But beyond just the game, Kenny Dillingham gave a very emphatic, I am staying at ASU post-game.
Yeah.
And just given kind of the whole college coaching carousel that's happening, and fans are always assuming the worst, and then Graham Rossini made some comments that seemed to contradict some of the things Kenny Dillingham was saying. But then it came out that Kenny Dillingham told all of his players in the locker room, like, don't worry about any of this. It's all just noise. I'm coming back. I'm staying. Before Iowa State. Yeah. But he never said that as publicly, emphatically as he did today to the media. And today he said, I was never leaving. This is my home. So, Chris, what kind of led Kenny Dillingham to finally really just hit the nail on the head and say, I'm staying?
Yeah, he laid it out a little bit. He said that there were conversations that happened yesterday that validated things that he had been told by Graham Rossini previously that involved ASU's administration, that gave him comfort that the type of support that is needed to be successful is going to be there from the university. He's not out on an island. There's not a concern that they're not going to have the resources. That was alleviated based upon the conversations that happened yesterday. And I think that a lot of the comments that he had made a couple days ago and in other interviews earlier, more recently, they were things that were not that decisive, not nearly like what we saw today. He had told the players before Iowa State that he was going to be coming back. But remember, it's important for a college head coach to project confidence. You want to return all of your players. You don't want them to think that there's problems really going on behind the scenes. But then you also don't want to say things publicly that give a false sense of the reality of where you're at from a resource standpoint. ASU accomplished something more amazing than I think people really understand truly last season, because teams were spending $20 million in NIL before there was the House settlement, before there was revenue share, which came into play this year. And ASU's roster was like $3.5 or maybe $4 million in NIL. That's a 5-to-1 disadvantage that ASU faced against the teams that were in the college football playoff. And that is not something that you're going to be able to overcome every single year. Now, this year's a little bit different because revenue share allows schools to pay their athletes, and ASU, like a lot of schools, is paying like in the 13, 14, $15 million range. On the higher side, at the schools that didn't have scholarship expansion, ASU had scholarship expansion, so it's not quite as much, okay? But Texas Tech and a lot of other schools have billionaire benefactors that were pouring many more millions of dollars into their roster. It's been reported, I think, 35 million reported for Texas Tech's roster. Well, that is 3 times as much maybe as ASU's roster, maybe a little bit less than that. And so the House settlement, which people have heard about, I think, at this point, which allowed schools to give revenue share money, this $13, $14 million at ASU that we're talking about, that is only one piece of the equation. The House settlement was designed to have this new College Sports Commission be the overseer, the evaluator of fair market NIL valuations, to where they're supposed to be like a clearinghouse where these deals should go through. I've talked to a lot of agents, and I've talked to a lot of people in the industry, and that stuff is not being adhered to. The CSC is very new. They have few employees. It's not the NCAA. It's a totally different thing. And you have agents that are representing athletes who are making a lot of money, and they are dealing directly with boosters and businesses and other people, and they're not submitting these deals to this CSC as it's in this early nascent phase. And so for ASU, given the reality that Sam Levitt is one of the higher profile quarterbacks in the country, and ASU is probably going to lose most of its starters who are seniors, there needed to be a feeling that the resources were going to be there, with the backed by the leadership of the university promoting that. And whatever happened yesterday clearly gave Kenny Dillingham confidence that that's going to happen, and that as a result of that, I think for the first time he said, I was never going anywhere. I don't know that he was definitely not going to look at other options had he eventually felt like the resources and the support wasn't there. But now that's been alleviated. And I actually let fans, our subscribers in the Devil Sanctuary, know about this even before what Kenny Dillingham said today, because we had heard about these meetings taking place and the dialogue and what that was going to lead to.
Now, when Texas Tech did what it did in the offseason and just had a billionaire pumping as much money as it did into the program, people were kind of saying, this is the year. Like, if they don't get it done this year, that's it, because they thought that these rules were going to stand in place and be firmly adhered to. So how are schools working around this so that this kind of cycle of billionaires just giving all their money to players and schools is continuing?
I think there's a plausible deniability aspect to this, which is not real, but it's like a thing that these schools are trying to do, where it's like, oh, we don't know that our billionaires are going around the College Sports Commission to pay players. Like, and if everybody's kind of doing it, then it's like everybody driving 75 on the freeway.
Yeah. You can't pull over everyone.
You're not going to pull over everyone. You might pull over somebody, but they're playing the odds. And there's so much money at stake for these coaches. They're making huge amounts of money. And everybody's saying, well, this is what's going on everywhere. And there's going to be more lawsuits. There's going to be a more robust version of the College Sports Commission next year or beyond. Ultimately, we may need collective bargaining to resolve this issue in a way that creates better equity for everybody involved. But in the interim, between now and then, Kenny Dillingham basically said, I never came into a press conference saying I want to be liked. He was just trying to get what he felt was needed for ASU to be able to have a competitive, successful program. And the conversations allowed him to feel that that's going to now happen. And ASU's trying to build this indoor practice facility, and they already have like 6 or 7 million committed from boosters. Well, maybe that money needs to come from the university instead, and the boosters are funding the NIL in a way that's allowed or is being done more broadly. I'm not really sure, but the reality is clearly he feels like things are now in place for him to be able to do that. And as a part of that, he emphatically said, not going anywhere.
Well, an emphatic response there, and that he was cracking jokes like
Yeah.
I've never seen before. He's usually kind of a funny guy in those
had a
press
baby.
conference. Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. He's
Of
probably a
course.
very proud father. Yes.
There was no cigars or anything, but he felt like that.
Well, an emphatic response, and then just a good vibe overall.
Yeah.
I'll put it that way. And the press conference, and part of that has to be because he knows that ASU is still very much alive in this race to the Big 12 championship. There's a bunch of different scenarios, but if you're an ASU fan, Cincinnati lost to Arizona today, so that's another 2-loss team. The only other 1-loss teams are Texas Tech and BYU. It seems much more likely that BYU is the team to lose another game rather than Texas Tech. So if you're an ASU fan, the first thing you're rooting for is BYU has to lose another game, play TCU tonight, and then next week they play Cincinnati, so that's probably the best chance at that. But anything can happen in college football, and there's a whole bunch of other scenarios too if there ends up being multiple 2-loss teams or even more 2-loss teams.
Yeah, Arizona's win over Cincinnati was a positive for ASU. Utah's going to be playing tonight. ASU fans should root for Utah to lose. BYU, as you mentioned, they should root for BYU to lose. Next week, Cincinnati and BYU play each other. ASU's going to have to win 2 more games with a combination of a few other results going their ways. Not like 6 or 7 results. It's like a few things have to happen. And it's a very plausible thing that ASU could be playing Arizona in the Territorial Cup with a very good chance to advance to the conference championship game with a win in that game. Again, we're not going to go through all the scenarios, especially with 2 more games remaining. A lot of people will probably watch this after some of that's happened. So that's why we have a podcast on Monday, which we will be able to go over all of the various permutations of what could happen, what fans should be rooting for, etc. But just the fact that ASU, with all the injuries, all these guys that have been, they're key players, not out there. And ASU 7-3, given all of that, and only 2 losses in the Big 12 with 2 games left to play. Remember, they were a 2-loss team last year in a 4-way tie. That's how they got into the conference championship game. People forget, they lost 2 games early, and they were able to overcome that. Don't count them out. Colorado's been struggling a lot lately. That's a good opportunity to get a road win. And there's going to be a lot of, white knuckle, whether you're delivering a baby or whether you're just stressed out about...
The teacup could have some real weight here. I mean, the past 2 years it hasn't. I mean, obviously, 2 years ago, ASU was very much struggling. And
ASU needed to win last year, but Arizona was...
2 years ago.
Oh, yeah, 2 years ago.
That was, not very evenly matched than last year, like you mentioned. Flipped the other way around, where ASU was obviously the better team going into the game. And then this year, Arizona just beat Cincinnati.
Playing really well
as of late, especially. And Arizona State, if they win next week at Colorado and BYU does end up losing another game, that teacup game could really make or break it. So just fueling the rivalry even more.
Yeah, and we're going to be around doing all this
like we usually do.
Figuring out,
the drill.
if ASU can make it easier on its fans for once.
Well, that would be, I'm sure, refreshing to everybody. And
everybody.
Kenny Dillingham probably as well.
He would love it. You can tell his voice is hoarse.
I don't think I've ever heard his voice at full health.
Yeah, probably not. He was yelling at his team quite a lot after they gave up the 3rd and 27, which he called it, as you said, the second worst play of his career, other than a Hail Mary that they allowed. So they're gonna when the defense doesn't give up those big plays. Remember, they like when they went to Mississippi State, they gave up 3 of them, and then this game they gave up 2 of them. When they don't give those up, and even with those, they still didn't with 23 points. They're really good. You just can't have those big catastrophic plays where you have those breakdowns. And if they're able to avoid those, I think they have a very good chance of winning the next 2 games.
Well, the season has gone by very quick, I feel like. Just 2 games left. Colorado next week. Myself, Chris, and Jake Sloan will be out in Boulder covering that game. And then, of course, everybody back in town for the T-Cup the following week. And then we'll see what the future holds from there. We'll have you covered through it all. Chris, like you said, our podcast on Monday, once all the results of the weekend in the Big 12 come in, we'll have a full another breakdown just like we have in the past couple weeks. Some very interesting things to watch for sure. Like last year, ASU kind of had the future in its hands, and this year it's pretty much out of their control. They do have to win out though.
Yeah.
So we'll have you covered through it all, and until next time, Gabby Chernoff and Chris Cartman here at Mountain America Stadium for the Sun Devil Source Postgame Show presented by Jones Auto Centers.